And my apologies. Because in a way, we needed to be here. But it was a time in Lindsey Wilson's colleges, it was the other side of darkness in terms of the challenges that were going on in higher education and in this community. And so there's a saying, at least back in the days when I had a dating life, that was said, how the date ended is how the date went. And so today, in the ending of one date and the beginning of another. So let us not fret or cast aspersions, but my presence here today is meant to be a strong statement to the testament of the importance of our partnership and relationship with this institution. See, for me personally, for the Bonner Foundation, for the national community, for higher education and the American culture, it's appropriate to lift up the Founders Day here to reaffirm the collective commitment that we have together. In my job, I endure sales calls from many college presidents from around the world. Most of them have larger endowments. Some are more selective in their criteria, and many are much better known nationally. And it just bugs them. It irks them so much when they're telling me the story, and then I start telling, well, have you been to Lindsey Wilson College in Columbia? And then when you go, make sure you know what time it is. I got to know Bill through a rare introduction. An introduction where one college president actually had the confidence to introduce a foundation officer to another. That was David Joyce when I met him up in New York City. And he told me that he was coming down to Princeton later that day to see his daughter who had just enrolled in Princeton. And I said, hey, I'm Presbyterian. You don't want to spend the money on the hotel. Come and you can stay with us. And he must have some Presbyterian somewhere. And he said, sure. What I forgot to tell him was that I wasn't going to be there. So Bill, have at it. We drove up to Canada, and the house was still standing when we came back. Bill has been a friend. He's been a champion of the common commitments that we share at the Bonner Foundation. And he's a colleague that has similar passions. And it's the joy for me is to be here on Bill's big day. You know, I think if it's a testament to the fact that on a day when he knew or was hoping that the football program was going to be announced, he asked me to follow. And I think it's not just that he wanted to show he could tackle me when he needed to, but it's a statement about the priority and where everything fits together. See, Lindsey Wilson's not an easy place to get to. Again, it's not particularly well known in Princeton, New Jersey, but it does exactly align with the mission of the foundation that we work with. Our mission being access to education and opportunity to serve. Last night I had a chance. I did my first houseboat trip, and I realized after being on the boat for 2 hours I hadn't looked up at all. Because I was so enthralled with what it meant to be with those students. And so there were about half of the Bonner leaders. We were there together. And I asked them the question. I said, okay, let's just say you had my job for a day, and you had to give $1 million to an institution, whether it would be University of Kentucky, Harvard, or some other unnamed college here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And the response they told was one of youthful idealism. They talked about the Lindsey Wilson College passion, its commitment to serve and to small towns and to faith and to family. They shared with how the Bonner program, how we had not instilled any particular value in them because their parents and their faith traditions and their communities had already done that. But what we had done together is to create a vehicle to engage people to change the world. When I asked the question to Stephanie, how many Bonner leaders did you think was the right number for the school? Quickly it came out of her mouth, 200. I'm glad Elise and Amy weren't anywhere nearby, because they would have jumped out of the boat or thrown Stephanie and I off the boat. To give you an idea, the largest Bonner program we have is about 130 at the University of California at Berkeley. But we don't need 200 Bonner leaders here at this school, because if we have a core of 40, 50, 60, what that means is that we can have a student leadership cadre that will encourage and challenge the rest of the community to be part of service. I want to tell you a story about last spring. I think I meant this when I was kind of passing off a comment saying, boy, I wish somebody would come to Princeton and paint our picket fence outside the Bonner Foundation. Well, there was, I think, Nick heard me say that. I think I knew Nick was standing there, and I thought if anybody was going to take me up on it, he would. So we found out that there was a $49 flight from Louisville to Baltimore, and somehow, if we could get up to Baltimore, we could get to Princeton, New Jersey for cheap. And so we had about 15, 20 students and administrators get to Princeton, New Jersey. And so three things happened that I wanted to tell you. One is that we in fact painted the 1,100 picket fence that we have surrounding the Bonner Foundation. And it's the one block in Princeton in between the seminary and the university that's not owned by either. It's a distinguished part of town. It's where Einstein lives, about 10 doors down. And I got to tell you, Kentucky was stopping traffic in Princeton, New Jersey that day. But for me anyway, it showed the character. It showed the commitment of a student body and an administration that was willing to be adventurous, to get dirty, and to bring their heart together and to build a relationship with other folks. Second thing happened on that trip. When the Lindsey Wilson College students came to visit us and stay at our house and at the foundation below, they met a young man named Ferris, two men, Ferris and Osama. Two Palestinian students who were living in my house, having gone through a horrific experience the semester before. Both Ferris and Osama, Bonner scholars at a Quaker school in North Carolina, were savagely beaten by students from their own school as a result of a racial incident. And here were two men that were caught up in an international media fury. It was a story that was on CNN and Al Jazeera and everywhere else. But they had nowhere to go. And so they stayed in our home as we thought about thinking their plans. And in came the Lindsey Wilson College students. And within 15 minutes, this kid was inundated with literature and stories and maps of how to get to Columbia, Kentucky. And phone calls to the admissions office and to the president saying, we have a kid that we want to bring. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have a U.S. passport. But he has a heart to serve, and we love him. I got to tell you that I've worked with over 100 colleges and universities, provided fundings of $10, $15 million. And there's no other institution, there's no other person that I can make a phone call and say, I got a kid. I need you to take him. Trust me. And he's in. Or she's in. This is Founders Day. And that's what the mission of this place is all about. The third story, that Ferris ended up going to another institution. I wish he'd come here, but he ended up going to Florida. I think from Jordan, Amman, Jordan, Ramallah, Jordan to Florida was more in his comfort zone. But thanks for the offer. The third story I want to tell you about is that when we went up to New York City and we went up to the Met, we took the Staten Island ferry across the Hudson, and we went to the Apple store, and then I made the students go to the law firm of Fulbright and Jaworski on the top of 666 Fifth Avenue to meet with the foundation's attorney, one Bill Bush, who's the head of the firm, a 2,000-member firm based in Houston, but one of the great champions of the Bonner Foundation and the Bonner program. It was probably not what the students had planned, but there we were, the top of 666 Fifth Avenue, about 50 stories tall. And there were the Lindsey Wilson College students. And they had the opportunity to tell some of the most powerful people, not just in New York, but in America, the story of Lindsey Wilson College, the story of where they came from, and what they were planning to do. And I tell you, it was a development officer's dream